is the one story you want to tell that you can never fit into a conversation? Story 1. A few years ago, I was at E3. I turned around a corner and walked into Hulk Hogan, bumping into him. He responded saying, "Pardon me, brother." Then we parted ways. Story 2. I might have met Christopher Walken while working at a fast food restaurant. This guy walks in that looks really familiar. I thought that maybe he came a few days ago or something, and that's why he looked familiar. I take his order, and I ask for a name to put on the order. He chuckles and says, "Chris." Why did he chuckle? I didn't know at the time. It wasn't until a few days later where it hit me that the guy looked like Christopher Walken. He said his name was Chris, and the reason he chuckled was probably because I didn't realize he was Christopher Walken. Story 3. Nobody cares about mountain biking, but I had a fantastic crash where I fell off a cliff and landed in a shallow, frigid river, and when I got up, I realized I had landed on my bike, and the pedal had punctured my cheek. I walked in the river 2 kilometers back to the car, pushing my busted bike. The key fob was pooched from the water, so I had to use the key, but hands were too cold to work, so I started the car and drove with my elbows. Cell phone was wet, so I drove to the ranger station. Ranger station was closed for the season, so I tried my cell. Hand was so cold I used my tongue. It worked, but no reception. Kept driving, bleeding all over my car until I got to a gas station and had them call me an ambulance. The medic wondered why I loaded my bike into the car before getting help. Edit, considering everyone I know has avoided my biking stories for decades. I am very surprised I got gold. Thank you. Story 4. One time I walked into a Home Depot and an employee there said hello, and I just went, "Thanks." We looked at each other for a second or two, and then he said, "You want to try again?" And I just kind of chuckled and scurried off. This haunts my every waking moment. Story 5. I helped a little girl who got separated from her mother in a mall. Mom got on the escalator going down with a stroller and their coats and bags, and the girl was scared of the escalator. So she steps back and is now at the top while Mom is at the bottom, and everyone's nervous. There are people behind me piling up, but I ignore them. I put out my hand, point to Mom who we can see, and say we'll go down together. The girl won't speak any words and is clearly frightened, but takes my hand. I say, "Okay, ready, 1, 2, 3, and step onto the escalator," but she doesn't move, and I have to hop backward. I try one more time. No luck. I crouch down and ask, "Is it okay if I pick you up?" And she nods yes. So I repeat yet again, "Okay, in picking you up, they'll take you to your mom." Okay, the whole time I'm reminding her that Mommy is right there, and we're going to go to Mommy. When I stood up to carry the girl down, I heard a group of teenage girls let out a collective, "Oh," at the bottom. I pass her off to Mom and kept on my way as a single 35-year-old guy. The story is absolute gold with women, but there's never any reason to bring it up. Story 6. I got done with my bartending shift in a college town over a summer and headed over to my friend's house for after bar. Everything in this town was walking distance, and since it was summer, it was fairly quiet night at around 4 o'clock, 8 a.m. as I'm walking home from the after bar by myself. Suddenly, a couple of guys come up behind me, completely wasted riding a tandem bike. These guys were barely keeping this thing on the street when a car drove by, slowed down, and a girl from the back window of the car leans out and flashes her at them. They guys crashed their tandem bike into a curb in a fantastically comical way, and the car sped off. I miss small college town life. Story 7. In 3rd grade, there was a girl I used to hang out with. She had a weird laugh. It sounded like a horse's neigh. One day, she was very happy about something and kissed me. After that, whenever I laughed, it sounded like a neigh too. I ended up going to another school after that and lost that laugh. Story 8. I live in Maine in the same town as Stephen King. I have worked at several stores when I was younger, such as Home Depot and Walmart. He has come in sometimes. He recognized me when I worked at Home Depot from Walmart and said, "You really need to stop following me." Jokingly, of course. He was a pretty cool dude, bought some screws and lumber. Story 9. I used to deliver pizzas. I roll up to this one house, waltz to the door, have a knock, and start waiting when this cicada starts dive bombing me, kamikaze style, with rage, like I could almost hear it screaming at me. This went on for the several minutes that my customer wasn't answering the door, and then the cicada conveniently flew away right as the door popped open. So I'm sitting there stressed, kind of in shock with a pizza in my hand, and tell the customer what happened for some reason. They don't care, whatever. I walk back to my car, get in. The cicada is in my car, attacks me again. One of the most surreal exchanges with nature I've yet encountered. Story 10. One summer, my mother found a baby seagull. My sister and I then raised that seagull the entire summer, and we ended up bonding with him. We could pet him. He would sleep on our lap, and he started to steal our dog's squeaky toys. He also got attacked by a cat once, but survived relatively unscathed. He learned to fly after 8 weeks or so, so my mom then put him out in the wild. Next to her workplace, he would frequently meet up with us and snuggle a bit. My mom would feed him some raw shrimps as well. When winter came, he disappeared, and we never met him again. What a weird summer that was. Edit, thanks for the silver. Stranger, here's a picture of the little guy. The last one I took of him, edit 2 whoa. Thanks for the goal. My first one. You guys are a good bunch of people, and I enjoy reading the answers below. I wish I had time to reply to everyone. Story 11. When I was a kid, I had this awesome Supersonics hoodie. It was my favorite piece of clothing I owned, and I wore it all the time. One Halloween, we were lighting off some fireworks. One kid shot a Roman candle at a light post, and it bounced off, came right back down, and landed in my hoodie pocket. Burned a hole right through the whole thing. I looked for a new one, but at that point the Sonics were gone. For those that don't know, Sonics were a Seattle NBA team that the douchebag Howard Schultz sold to out-of-towners for no reason. Fast forward many years, and I'm walking through a shopping outlet and see my old hoodie. I buy it on the spot, of course. It felt like being reunited with an old friend. A little while later, I'm out for a jog in a hoodie, and while running on a path, a protruded tree branch sticking out catches my hoodie pocket and rips it straight through. Same exact pocket, and even on the same exact side. I just don't even know. Went back to the outlet, and of course the shop is shut down permanently. I got my sister to sew it up, but it doesn't have the same clean look it used to. Story 12. I won a Nintendo Switch in a cereal box. The problem with telling the story is that it's not interesting enough to fill in the details once I've explained the ending. I'm going to do it anyway, though. I had gotten Honey Bunches of Oats, my favorite cereal, and I was eating it for breakfast in my dorm. I had woken up earlier than usual, so I had a decent amount of time before my first class. I had just finished the box and I was going to go recycle it, but I saw there was this promotion on it that you could win one of 500 prize pack containing a Nintendo Switch and Super Mario Odyssey. I just kind of had a moment where I was like, I got time. I plug all the information into the website, and the screen shows a Mario question block and the instructions to click on the question block a few times. If a mushroom popped out of it, then you were a winner. So I click a few times, coins pop out of the top, and then all of a sudden this mushroom slowly rises from the top of the block. I was in total disbelief, and I was like, nah, I probably misunderstood the directions, but nope, I just won a Nintendo Switch and Super Mario Odyssey. Literally everyone I told about it was just like, huh, I always thought those were scams. I didn't realize people actually won those. It's been pretty good. I would never have been able to afford a Switch otherwise, so that's definitely a plus in my book. Once my wife and I were on one of those supermarket ramps that move like escalators, don't know the right word, and an employee was pushing empty carts in front of us. We were a few steps back, and the genius decided to ride in front of the carts. God knows why. 2 or 3 carts got loose and came rolling towards me and my wife, so I promptly jumped in front of her, saving her face from being hit by shopping carts. I never tell this story because it would look like I'm bragging, and she never tells this story because she's ungrateful. Story 13. One time my girlfriend had our dog at the park while I was at work. She called me frantically saying the dog ran off. Said the poor pup got spooked by a cyclist and bolted. This dog was very well behaved and obedient and had never done this before. We eventually find her a couple miles away, in the front yard of the house I first lived in with the dog. Neither I nor the dog had been to that house in years. Yet she somehow found her way straight there over all that distance. After all that time, dogs are incredible. Story 14. One time I was on the bus toward the back, but in front of the second door in the back. As we're going down the road, I noticed the guy in the seat across the aisle is sitting there jerking off. I mean, the whole thing was out and he was going to town. There was a mom and her kids, 2 seats in the front sideways facing seats. And I'm pretty sure he was looking at the kids. Just as I noticed the bus pulls up to a stop and the mom and her kids, who were probably around 7 to 5 range, get up to exit out the back doors. I bolt to my feet and block their way down the aisle and yell, "You need to go out the front door." The poor mom looks at me and starts to protest, but I just make myself big to block their way and start herding them to the front door. As she was exiting the bus, I tried to quietly tell her what was going on, but she was pretty mad at me and didn't let me get close enough to say anything. I think about this often. I was probably their villain of the day, and I actually might have saved them from real harm. Story 15. I posted this once before, but how I accidentally pissed off the crows, oh God, it's a long story. It started when these 4 boys around 10 or 11 would walk past my house every week to go swimming. And every week, 4 weeks in a row outside my house, the same kid got shat on by a massive crow. Obviously, we found this really funny and didn't make the connection at the time. He must have done something to the crow off. I was putting food out in my garden, but I was getting loads of feral pigeons, so I was trying to shoo them away, which this crazy crow must have taken offense to. Soon after, I noticed that I was getting caught at by crows all the time. No matter where I went, there was angry crows cawing at me. That's when I Googled crows and saw that they can hold grudges, recognize people, tell other crows about bad people. So I tried to make a peace offering by throwing food on my shed roof. My kitchen window, with the sink in front of it, overlooks the shed roof. After throwing food out, I stood by the window doing the dishes. This must have also pissed this crow off. Later that day, a crow started absolutely screeching and cawing. I went through to the kitchen to see what was going on when a huge landed on my window. In 20 years, there has been no on that window because there's a big ledge above it. So this crow must have hung its butt over the ledge just to do that. I went to bed that night only to be woken up at 5 a.m. by screaming right outside my bedroom window. I live on the first floor, so it couldn't have been a human. I Googled crow screaming, and sure enough, that was the noise I heard. It had chosen the only window with a light on to do that. Later on that day, there was a big crow sitting on a tree near that window. If anyone else went to the window, it just stayed still, but if it saw me, it started bouncing on the branch, like it thought it was funny. Obviously, after the shitting and screaming, I wasn't going to give it any food that day. I did give it food the next day, and it must have taken a hint, because it never shat on my windows or woke me up by screaming again. However, for about a year and a half, every crow for a mile radius around my house would angrily caw at me. Don't off the crows. Story 16, when I was maybe 12 to 13, my parents found a USB drive. Not knowing what to do with it, they gave it to me. Curious, I put it in my laptop and see it full of data 16 GB. All the files were military profiles of individuals in the Army, some PowerPoint slides of research. Some of these profiles had social security address ranks and where they were stationed at. Some were still in Iraq. I removed the USB thinking they could be tracking this. I asked my dad where he found this. He said it was on the train stop in the airport. Still have it, never plugged it in unless I was at my high school or university to see what other stuff it had. Edit gonna find it and destroy it. Story 17, my girlfriend and I were at 7 to 11 and Dog the Bounty Hunter was there. My girl drives a smart car, which is adorable in its own right. But as we came out of 7 to 11, a leave dog held the door for us. And then when we were getting in the car, he said, "That's one cute car." My girlfriend had no idea who Dog was until I told her. Then she couldn't stop giggling that one of the most aggressive bounty hunters out there thought her car was cute. Story 18, in 2011, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. It was 4 days before my 17th birthday. When I got home from the hospital that day, I wanted to put myself in a better mood. So I watched Rush Hour, and then I watched Rush Hour 2, and then Rush Hour 3. Fast forward to a couple months ago, I volunteered at a high-profile event that had a ton of celebrities. We weren't allowed to fraternize with the celebs and ask for pictures and autographs and stuff, but there was one celeb that I needed to slightly break that rule for. At the end of the event, I made sure to be near the exit and wait there for Detective James Carter himself. I approached him, I shook his hand and walked him out while explaining to him that Rush Hour got me through one of the worst days of my life so far, and it made me smile during a time that I had no business smiling in. He stopped dead in his tracks, looked at me, and thanked me for telling him. He then gave me a hug before sincerely wishing the best for me and leaving the event. And that's what happened when I met Chris Tucker. Story 19, one time I hit a curb driving out of a parking lodi. Note it was a curb because I hit that curb 13 times in that terribly designed parking lot, and it made a loud enough noise that some family walking into the building thought I hit another car and were like taking photos of me and looking around for the car they thought I damaged. Story 20, I met the bassist from Tool once. Super nice guy. The whole experience was great until I went home and told my family, "Hey guys, I think I met someone famous today. Do you know the band Tool?" Family, "No way you met someone from Tool." "Who did you say?" Me. I asked them if his band was pretty popular. They mock me to this day. Story 21, when I was about 8 years old, I was playing outside with a friend and her little brother 2 or 3. Why? Oh, my friend was slowly riding my bike on the sidewalk, and I was walking beside her, but her brother insisted on riding his tricycle on the middle of the road. It was a dead end without movement. There's a funeral home nearby that often left their hearse parked on that street. Little guy was right behind the hearse when it suddenly starts moving backwards. I quickly pulled him out of his tricycle as he was about to get ran over. It still creeps me out how the kid could have died that day by the same hearse that would have taken him to his funeral. Sometimes I see him on the street and wonder if he remembers he almost died that day. Edit typo. Story 22, one time me and my brother were being signed up by my parents to do a Rugrats Campbell Soup commercial. My parents were both in chairs in front of this desk, talking to a man, and I was sitting leaning against the wall by the door behind them. Then a hand comes through the door and clamps around my mouth, and I get dragged out of the room. He's dragging me down the hall, and I'm trying to kick and scream, but he's this 6'2" white guy with a long beard, and I can't budge or make a noise past his hand. Then halfway down the hallway in the lobby, the receptionist looks up at us, and he lets me go. I run back to the room and sit on the floor between my parents' chairs. The guy comes in again and whispers something to the man my parents are talking to, and leaves. It still makes me angry today, because when I told them this story, they didn't believe me. I was 5. I'm 27 now, and now they believe me. It was so traumatizing, I still remember it. Story 23, the time my 62 schizophrenic patient on a 72-hour psychiatric hold was pleading with me to run and get him a urinal jug because he couldn't make it to the bathroom. This was odd because he could walk just fine, but I like keeping the peace. I run to grab a new one and pop it open to help him place it quick. Got there just in time for him to on my hand wrist, and the new urinal, the only time as a nurse I was truly caught off guard by an inappropriate gesture to the point of full assault. I was raging inside and frozen in my response. Luckily, my amazing coworker stepped in to take over while I went and sobbed in the locker rooms for a bit. In hindsight, it's the craziest, cruelest moment of my career, and yet because of the help I got, the sickness of that patient, and my dark sense of humor, I can now laugh at that moment in time. Not a great story to tell over drinks and dinner with friends, or ever, because Story 24, a family friend was babysitting me and her grandson. He liked hunting, so he had tons of toy guns, and we were running around the house and shooting each other with them. I ducked into the bedroom with the door open and waited until I heard footsteps. I shot out of that room, guns blazing, complete with machine gun sound effects. The problem was that it wasn't the kid. I about gave that 60-year-old woman a heart attack. She swore and stormed off, but I couldn't stop laughing. Story 25, one day, I was driving to my parents' house. The way to my parents is on a pretty active highway, but about halfway on there is a small town. I was at the end of the town when I see something black in the road. At first, I think it's a piece of tire, but then he raises his little head up, and I swear to heck we made eye contact. It was the tiniest black kitten. Luckily, I was going slow enough to drive over him and not over him. I immediately pull over and run back into the road and am up. I didn't look before I ran into the highway, and a semi was coming the lane I was in. I ran back, tripped, and fell flat on my, and the semi stops in the road and honks his horn. I scream sorry and hold up the kitten like Simba. The truck driver gives me a shrug and a thumbs up and goes along his merry way. They gave the kitten to my mom, and she named him Midnight. He's an edit. Thank you for my first silver, whoever you're a kind stranger. Edit too holy, my first gold. Thank you, internet stranger. Edit a picture of mom and Midnight for those who wanted to see the lil. Story 26, my 50-year-old mother is one of the best 2048 players in the world. Her high score is somewhere in the millions, and she doesn't see it as a big deal, but I Googled it, and she's like top 5 in the country. Nobody other than myself is interested in this, so I don't get many opportunities to brag on her behalf. Story 27, I went to the Grand Canyon years ago with my parents. A couple of stops and we get out at a lookout where there's only us and this biker couple. She was sitting on the edge of the canyon with something in her hand, and he was videotaping her. We had to walk past them to get to a trail that led into the canyon. It didn't take me and my dad long to see what the couple was doing, so we stopped and tried to give them space, but my mom kept walking. The woman dumped something into the canyon, and at the same time a wind blew out of the canyon and at my mom. The biker couple watched what they had dumped out fly in my mom's face. It turns out that it was the ashes of her brother, and his last request was to have his ashes spread at the Grand Canyon. What followed is the most awkward 10 minutes of my life as they talked to my mom about the departed. At the end of the conversation, the lady says, "Don't feel bad about it. He loved to meet new people." My mom responds, "Well, it was nice to meet you and your brother as well." Story 28, I had Cat for 8 years. He lived in-house and outside. We moved 4 years ago. We brought him with us, but he kept going back to old house about 3 kilometers away. We gave up, and he lived there alone for 3 years. Our neighbors fed him. I didn't see him for over a year. One day this summer, I came home from work, and there he was. Sister visited old neighbor, and he was there. He walked home with her like a dog. Now he's with us like he never left. In the beginning, he was scared a bit. Now he basically only stays in house and goes outside to pee. And recently, he brought home a girlfriend. He is old, but is healthy and happy now. So are we. Thank you all. Hey, erase a pic. Story 29, my dad was good friends with David Bowie for a while. My mom's best friend was having potentially life-ending surgery open heart for the 3rd time due to Marfan's disease. So my dad told Bowie that she was a big fan. He ended up recording a video for her wishing her luck, and she still watches it from time to time. She's having another surgery on Tuesday. Story 31 time, when I was just devastatingly depressed in one of my darkest stretches. I went to Target with a friend of mine. While we were there in the dollar section, he hollered at me nice, because honestly, that's just the type of person he is. I was just ignoring him, but a 40 to 50-year-old woman was walking past to the exit right at that moment, and didn't see me standing sort of in front of her. She turns around and sees Connor standing there, clearly having just hollered and half smiling still. She gives him a horrified look, and he, not wanting to embarrass her by explaining he wasn't complimenting her, decides to own it and grins at her. She leaves the store, and I die laughing, hiding in the next aisle and watching this whole thing unfold. That was the first time I remembered laughing in months. Even while I was cracking up, I remember being shocked and thinking I'm laughing. I think that's funny. He made me laugh. It was one of the first moments of hope I had that I might ever feel joy again. It's been years now, and am now on medication that saved my life and allows me to be happy every day. Connor and I started dating a few years later and just got engaged. Every once in a while I try to explain how much that cracking me up mattered, but I don't think he really gets it. But it was the moment that I realized that no matter what, he was the one that would make things better. And he still makes me laugh every day. And to the lady in Target, in case you read this, we didn't mean to harass you. Story 31. 7 years ago, I, 18 at the time, was out to dinner with boyfriend's extended family and got stuck in a bathroom stall had a door, not a latch. I panicked and kicked that open. I came out the bathroom, calmly sat down at our table, and said nothing. I felt guilty for breaking the door, but also surprised at my ability to do so. Story 32. This past summer, me and two of my friends were passing the time by just walking a creek. We're in high school, so we had nothing better to do. As we're walking, we hear what we thought to be a little kid whining. The creek wound around an elementary school, so we thought it might be some daycare going on. We continue to walk down the creek, which then led us to a slow-flowing river about waist deep. We swim down and having a good time when we hear the same sound of the kid again, only it sounds less than 5 meters away, and it's definitely not a child. I look along the bank and spot a fawned baby deer stuck in some tree roots that were dangling over the bank. I don't know how long it had been stuck there, but its front left and both back legs were stuck in the roots. I ask one of my friends to hold my bag, and I head over to the deer. It had been stuck there for a decent while, because it didn't seem a struggle when I got close. Presumably cause it was too tired to. I go over and lift the fawn up and carry him over to a less steep bank where he can make his way into the tree line surrounding the river. I don't know what happened to it after that, but I'm hoping it found its mama. Story 33. I think I've shared this on another sub before, but I made Alec Baldwin laugh. It was Halloween, and I was in NYC, and my office was near the West 4th Street station, which is on 6th Avenue where they do the massive Halloween parade every year. I was trying to rush to the station before the parade started so I could get home and avoid the craziness. I was heading down Bleecker, and already there are tons of people dressed up on their way to the parade. As I'm speed walking down the street, I get into an awkward shuffle with someone heading the opposite direction, where you both go the same direction at the same time, then try to go the other direction, but you basically just keep blocking each other by accident. I look up, and the person I'm doing this awkward shuffle dance with is Alec Baldwin. I normally don't think so quickly on my feet, and I realize I pretty much peaked in this moment, but I blurt out that a great Alec Baldwin costume, and he laughed. Story 34. That time in Pattaya, Thailand, I put on a hat. Then one of the bar girls proceeded to it. Like it's such a crazy story that I can't fit in a daily conversation. Edit, yes, I was wearing the hat. Story 35. One time, I was walking home from school via a popular shortcut, which goes through a small wooded area. You also have to cross a stream with stepping stones. There was a small fire at the base of one of the trees, probably from someone's blunt, so I doused it with my water bottle. Also, I would dearly love to explain the plot of the Protoman's albums, but nobody really cares. Edit, okay. So actually, apparently, everyone cares about the Protoman, and nobody cares about the fire. Story 36. I was held hostage in Iraq for over 2.5 years. I was the only person released alive out of the 5 of us taken. I did an AMA about it once. Fitting that into a conversation is interesting. Story 37. My dad is an OBGYN. He once got called by the local zoo to perform an emergency C-section on one of their gorillas. My mom has the baby gorilla's picture on a mantle with our baby picture. Story 38. This one is so weird I don't think anybody will believe me, but it'll tell my tale anyway. About 6 years ago, I was working in fast food. I was training 60 new employees at a brand new location with no other fast food spot for 30 minutes around. It was ID, regularly work 16-hour days with only a 30-minute break thrown in there. The new hires were being trained by 2 other experienced crew members and myself, so most of the work was on us 3. I was hating life. One day, I took my lunch out in the lobby, which don't usually do. I sat alone until an old man asked if he could share my table. We talked for a bit. He noticed my name tag and says Alejo. That's my name too. Alejo the Duck. I tell him how strange. That's my full name too. All of a sudden he gets serious and tells me save a dime for every dollar I make. That'd be good to have in case of an emergency or difficult situation. He's been doing it since he was 20, and it helped him when he had to take time away from work. We say goodbye, and I get back to work, but thought about him all day. I took that advice, and when I got testicular cancer a few years later and had to take leave from work, I had a nice savings to fall on. Maybe he was future me watching out for me. Story 39. My GF managed to me about a week ago after months of trying. It's something I always wanted to experience, and she tried and tried and tried and finally did it. I'm so proud of her and thankful for it. I just want to brag to everyone I know, but she'd murder me if she didn't die of embarrassment. Story 41. Time, I bumped into Alec Baldwin in Savannah, Georgia outside of Leopoldo's the ice cream shop. I just bumped into him and just said sorry, and he laughed and said, "Don't worry about it." And when I heard his voice, I looked back, and he literally winked at me. Alec Baldwin winked at me when I recognized him. Story 41. We were playing Cards Against Humanity with a couple wed and known for several years. One of the cards came up with something to do with, and the husband of the other couple brings up something slightly, but not overtly condescending. His wife defends bisexuals against it, and he doubles down. My wife and I both admit we're uncomfortable moment, but it passes. A bit later, we're all buzzing, and the husband admits he'd like to see his wife in a three-way with another girl. We mentioned that by doesn't mean that we're in a three-ways or swinging or anything else, just how we're built, and that we've never come close to having a threesome by polyamory. We then have to tell him we're not offended. You don't know if you don't bring it up, but be careful. You might get your wish with your wife. We continue with weekly game nights for another 3 or 4 months, until they move 3 states away. One day, as I'm at work, he sends me a text that he finally talked his wife into a threesome, and he's giddy with anticipation. I warn him again, be careful what you ask for, and watch your expectations. I don't hear from him for a while. Their Facebook feed goes on much as before, nothing too interesting. About 6 months later, her status goes from married to it's complicated. I ask my wife what's up if she knows. Oh yeah, the wife decided that women are way better in bed than him. She tried to explain away, then tried telling herself she was wrong. But after their 15th three-way in 6 months, she decided that their relationship, which was mostly just mutual attraction anyway, was over. She didn't just give him up, she gave up men completely. A month later, I'm sitting on the phone in my car while dude is doing a pour me when I do and I told you so. That was the last time we talked. Story 42. Two good friends of mine from medical school found out they were half-sisters after they both separately sent in kits to 23andMe. The kicker is that the donor was also a medical student. Story 43. I was going to an on-field concert after a baseball game. So once the game was finished, a stream of people, myself included, are going down the stairs to reach the field entrance. I start hearing shouting and a scream behind me on the stairs. I stopped and turned around to see what was happening, and somehow I caught the arm of a woman who had been falling down the stairs, the cause of the commotion. I hauled her to her feet, and we sort of just stared at each other for a moment before continuing down the stairs. I will never know how this happened so perfectly, and it will never happen again, but I felt like a ninja. Story 44. My stories from when I was in the Air Force. I have 2 sons in their teens, and they're completely disinterested. I can rarely work them in without seeming like a complete tool to normal conversation at parties or other social situations. It's not like I was a total commando or anything at all. Just some mildly interesting stories from a decent career, but maybe I will have some grandkids that will be interested. Story 45. It was kind of mean, but harmless prank me, and every neighborhood kid did when I was growing up. There was this old lattice house we would go by once a month, and each time a different kid would go up to the door, ring the doorbell, and ask if Mike could come out and play. The problem was there was no one named Mike living there. It was just her. This went on for about 2 years. And every time someone did this, the old lady was so nice explaining how there was no Mike. When she did, we acted all sad and slowly walked away. Kids are man.